On October 10th, at about 7:30 p.m., 17-year-old Alicia Elmore walked 2 blocks to run an errand for her mother and brother. When she returned, a man wearing a mask and carrying a gun grabbed her. He pushed her into a garage and proceeded to strip her, cover her head, and bound her with her own clothes and electrical wire. Bill Benefiel put her in his van and took her to a house. He then held Alicia captive for 4 months, raping her daily at gunpoint. For the first few months, Benefiel kept her eyelids glued together and pried them open only when he wanted to see her eyes. 2 months into brutal captivity, Alicia was sexually assaulted to the point of being injured. Benefiel then decided to take her to the hospital. Benefiel went to a distant hospital where they wouldn't be recognized. He warned Alicia, if she tried to escape, he would kill her. The doctors told Alicia that she was pregnant and must refrain from having intercourse. Benefiel moved her to another house and chained her to the bed. One day Alicia heard someone else in the house. It was Dolores Wells, naked, gagged. She had handcuffs on her wrists and ankles. Dolores' eyes were also taped shut. Benefiel beat Dolores in front of Alicia with his fists and electrical cords. Alicia saw the injuries Dolores had sustained, welts on her arms and legs, with big black bruises on her face. A few days later, Benefiel returned to the house, dirty with blisters covering his hands. He told Alicia he had been digging a grave, big enough for 2 people. In the end, he only used the grave for Dolores. He made Alicia watch as he put super glue up Dolores' nose and pinched it shut. He stuffed toilet paper in her mouth and taped it closed so she couldn't breathe.
He took Dolores from the house and returned 2 hours later, informing Alicia that he had killed her. A few days had gone by when a police cruiser showed up at Benefiel's house looking for Alicia. Benefiel decided to hide her in a crawl space in the ceiling, but the police found her. He was sentenced to death in November of 1988. On April 20th, 2005, 16 years later, Benefiel was executed on Indiana's death row. Prior to birth, Benefiel's biological mother, Norma Vick, arranged to sell him in exchange for a place to stay during her pregnancy to Helen Benefiel. For the next 6 years, Helen and the man she was living with, Harry Benefiel, told people that Bill was their own or a foster child. Harry died of cancer on Benefiel's 6th birthday. Shortly after Harry's death, Helen petitioned to legally adopt Benefiel. The Vigo County Department of Public Welfare conducted a pre-adopted investigation. She was described by the school system as being overprotective, often keeping Bill home for the smallest reasons. At the time of the agency's report, 6-year-old Benefiel was sleeping in the same bed as Helen. Despite the unqualified recommendations of the Welfare Department, Helen legally adopted Bill in 1963. After Helen obtained legal custody, Benefiel's school and mental health records described Helen as a controlling, hostile, and unstable woman who used her son to meet her own needs. Benefiel was sexually abused by a man who lived with his mother. When he told her, she didn't believe him and beat him with a belt and broom. Later, Benefiel was molested by 2 other men. He didn't tell Helen because of the fear of what her reaction would be. A social worker once explained Helen's role toward Bill as a parent who wants to keep their child in a submissive role through forms of abuse. Factors that affected Benefiel's development: physical and sexual abuse, inappropriate emotional boundaries, lack of social development, and isolation. These factors had a devastating impact when combined. If Bill Benefiel had been removed from Helen's home to begin with, the likeliness of this tragedy would have been small.